do.
There's two downsides to that. Number one is that those programs actually end up costing the district a lot of money.
Yep.
Because for each of those special ed students, they all have an individual education plan. They all have an IEP.
Yep.
And that IEP requires psychologists and the parent and teachers, and all these people have to come together. Of course, they're all getting paid by the hour, so that all gets billed to the district. And then this educational plan, if the parents ever disagree with it and they don't like it, they can sue the district. And they almost have no recourse on this. So then the district says, well, I don't want a lawsuit, we can't afford that. So then they cave to all these demands of the parents, and it's just a real nightmare. And I think, again, it's due to how we have the rules set up, that we really don't allow the district to take control.
Probably need a little revival of sovereign immunity for school districts.
Absolutely.
So people can't just sue them blind on every possible issue.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things.
Well, Grant, you certainly seem to have grappled a lot with Minneapolis public schools. That's something I'm grateful I don't have to deal with, and I think Mark feels the same way.
Really?
What would be your next important issue?
So these are all things that I'm talking about that are really at a local level. I think the state legislature addresses a lot of issues that are important to all of Minneapolis, and so probably another issue.
Now, they've got a fair control over Minneapolis because of funding. If they wanted to exercise it, they could.
A lot
the
of
DFL
money comes into the city from the state.
Yeah, the DFL really protects Minneapolis and makes sure that all the vested interests don't get hurt.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Minneapolis used to be a real stronghold for the Republican Party, and then we came in there and we made some changes about how the party would be represented with the BPOUs and things like that. They tried to break the back of it, and then basically we turned Minneapolis over to the Democrats and kind of left it languish. And now I think we're seeing this renaissance in Minneapolis. I know a lot of people that are running in Minneapolis, and they're all staunch conservatives, and they've been out there spreading that same message, and when they do, they've gotten a good response, I believe. They've had the people say, well, I really appreciate this really conservative message, this message of lower taxes, because we're feeling it in our pocketbook, and we just can't brook any more tax increases.
How long have you been door knocking?
I've been door knocking since March, April, yeah.
What kind of reception are you getting?
Got a real early start.
Yeah, I did. We had an early convention and endorsing convention. I got endorsed in February, so I've been out door knocking since March and April. When
No
I got
primary problems?
No primary problems. Like I said, I was able to defeat my challenger at the BPOU convention.
Okay,
So.
that's good. And he accepted the verdict.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So.
I defeated my challenger. He didn't. I ended up with a primary, but that's a long story. So what are the people telling you?
Well, I'll tell you what. When you come to the door in North Minneapolis and you say you're a Republican, I think a lot of people would expect that you would get a very negative response. And certainly there are a lot of people in my neighborhood that don't really appreciate some of the people that carry the name of Republican. I think people are frustrated with George Bush and Dick Cheney, and they're frustrated with the war, and so there are a lot of issues like that if you're very pro on those things, you're going to have a hard time. Now myself, I was very supportive of Ron Paul and his campaign. I really appreciated the kind of issues that he brought to the table, especially his fiscal policy and monetary policy. And so when I get out there and I say, well, I was a Ron Paul supporter, then they say, oh, Ron Paul, that's very interesting. We'd like to talk more about that and to you, because we really liked him and we liked what he had to say. And so I think that whole message of fiscal conservancy and trying to get the federal government back in line was something that resonated with them. And I think that people are starting to really feel that this growth of the federal government is something that we don't want. It's gotten too big, our privacy.
So Ron Paul is kind of like an intro for you.
Kind of, yeah. That's what helps get the door open, because if I was to go up there and say, well, I just really like the current crop of the guys that call themselves neocons, I think that I would have the door just slammed right back in my face. But if you're leaning more towards that real libertarian kind of message, then I think people are more receptive to that, at least in Minneapolis.
Okay, so you're able to get in and you're able to make some progress in with these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good. What other issues should we be talking about that are important to you?
So I think when I was starting
Make
to go
sure
into
we got them all?
No, we can keep talking about issues.
Okay.
I mean, so I think I said those are kind of a lot of issues that are important in Minneapolis, but to the state of Minnesota as a whole, what is more important? And so I think there are some issues there that we can talk about. One, namely, transportation. So we passed this thing on the ballot a while back ago where we said that we were going to amend how much we were going to spend on transportation, where it said we would spend not more or not less than 40% on transit and not more than 60% on roads and bridges.
Transportation amendment.
Absolutely, but if you look at how that was worded, it really says that we would spend no less than 40%. And so that means that we're setting a minimum bar there, and we're setting a maximum bar.
for roads.
And that doesn't make any sense, because now what we've got is we're trying to expand light rail, which doesn't pay for itself. We
That's
just
for sure.
passed this light rail corridor, which is something I was very upset about our governor at horse trading that, because if we're going to saddle the state of Minnesota with this new transit option, which doesn't pay for itself, which means it's going to be a constant drain on the budget, it really doesn't make any sense to do things like that. And that, I think, is one of those issues that I'd love to see the legislature overturn or somehow still kill if we can, is that light rail corridor. I think I went to the University of Minnesota, that's where I got my degree, and having one of those silent trains coming through there, just mowing down the students, I don't think is going to be what we want in the newspapers.
Well, so far, light rails claim more victims than concealed carry has. so-
Absolutely, and if you put it over there where you've got these kids that are just coming out of high school, they don't pay attention, they got their iPods, they're texting all the time, they're not paying attention to what they're doing, they're going to get hit by that train, and I think it's going to be just a nightmare for Minnesota, and a nightmare for the families and the students that get injured or killed by this train.